2024 meeting of the City of Jefferson Historic Preservation Commission order. My name is Alan Wheat, and I am the chairperson of the commission. I saw Aaron.
He was here.
Oh, okay.
He's probably out.
Good. I'm glad today. I'm not very good.
No, you're not hallucinating.
Okay. We'll let the commission introduce themselves. We'll start with Tiffany.
Tiffany Patterson.
Ryan Warren.
Deborah Green.
Christine Boston. Laura Ward.
Brad Schaefer.
And we do have a quorum present, and the staff.
Dawn Kirshner.
Rachel Kinsey.
Yours. Back in the dark there. And do we have an adoption of the agenda for tonight?
So move. Second.
Okay, we have a first and second. Do we have all in favor say aye?
Aye.
And motion carries. Can I have a motion for the meeting minutes from February 13th.
So move. Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Any old business? Okay. All right, in our new business, we have a demolition review for 2909 West Truman Boulevard. Rachel, you have a report on that for us? And there's some pictures that they brought that are going, we started out going around already, so.
Sorry.
Oh, well, we were going around, they got stopped.
All those pictures were in a link I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody have any trouble opening it?
No.
Because there was way too many to print off and copy. Right. That was just insane.
So they're coming around. So once you've looked at some of them, go ahead and pass some. Okay. So Rachel, sorry.
Sure, no, that's all right. The application was received for two structures located at 2900 and 2909 West Truman Boulevard, otherwise formerly known as the Unilever. And there's a map up on your screen of the property location. There is two address sites within the property. So the Unilever complex is leased through a Chapter 100 deal through the City of Jefferson. So that's why some of the addresses can get a little bit squirrely on that. Occurred back in the 60s or 70s, if I recall. The purpose of the request is to demolish two industrial buildings located on the Unilever site. The upper plastics building is the larger structure. If you can see on the map on the screen, there's a large blue box, and then there's also a smaller blue box. The larger structure is the upper plastics building, and the smaller structure is the old lacquer building. The upper plastics building, it was constructed between 1965 and 1966. The smaller lacquer building, we think, was constructed around 1970. We did include some of the maps, the aerial views. On Minmo GIS, we do have a 1960 view and a 1974 view. So within your packets and also up on the screen is the 1960 view. Mostly looked like farm, ag land. And then here's the 1974, which you could still see the outlines of the building. So you have the upper plastics building to the left that's slanted, and then the lacquer building that's to the middle right, right around that property line. And those are the two properties that we're talking about today. Both properties, neither are listed on the National Register, nor are they any formal designation of local landmark or within a local historic district. The property did hold character, interest, or value as far as the development, heritage, or cultural characteristics of the community, county, state, or nation. It was originally a Cheeseboro Ponds, I hope I'm saying that right, on structure, before it became Unilever in 1987. So this definitely did trigger the significance based off of developmental history of the city of Jefferson. And I'll go ahead and go through some of the property pictures up here. As Dawn had mentioned, the applicant provided a ton of photos, and so we put them in a link that you could access in the packet. So up on the screen, this is the photo of the smaller building, the lacquer building. Also within your packet was some of the research that we conducted on trying to figure out when all these different, first time that we really worked on a factory site, trying to figure out when those individual buildings started popping up. So this is where we noticed that the lacquer building was up and running in this newspaper article. Also up on your screen is more photos of the lacquer building. On the inside. And one of the things we did meet with Unilever and sort of a pre-development meeting to talk about processes for this project. And this was something that these buildings are really no longer used. So they were, other than storage, so they were looking to bring a new line to Jefferson City. Also up on your screen and within your packet is the upper plastics building. This is the larger structure. And as I go through these photos, I'll notice that I'll note that the applicant is present today. So if you have any questions specifically, you can address those to them. So when going through the staff report, we evaluated criteria in section 8-43F. We did find that the structure was notable in respect to historic value by reason of subsection A, its association with an event or events that significantly contributed to the broad patterns of the history or architectural heritage of the city, county, and state. Based on the findings, consideration for the nature of the surrounding area and the compatibility of the structure to existing adjacent structures, land uses, and redevelopment should be considered. The current zoning of this area is M2 General Industrial District. The property owner has plans to redevelop the property for future manufacturing and distribution use. It is the staff recommendation that the motion that demolition clearance application for 2900 to 2909 West Truman Boulevard is recommended for approval by this commission. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'm wondering, I know the door was closed because the door is supposed to remain open.
Yes, we have to leave.
There was noise.
I know.
So. Yeah, but it's
We have to have the public
We
meeting.
have it.
Sorry.
Can we leave it ajar?
just a mop up a little bit. Ignore my text, Aaron.
We've been told before. Okay, so I have a couple questions. Can you come to the podium because of the microphones? These buildings you can't really see these buildings from West Truman, correct? Very well. They're like on the other side
Not
of the
very
parking
well,
lot.
or if at all. They're in the back part of the property. Maybe from that neighborhood that's on the far side, but
Sioux Drive
same,
area.
exactly.
Shoemake Chapel. Are there train tracks that run through these buildings?
There are not train tracks. The train tracks run adjacent to, there's a back road, probably closer to the lacquer building, but still quite a ways from the lacquer building.
Does anyone else have any other?
Is this the site for the 100-foot plus?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the Upper Plaza building, the new automated warehouse was built on top of the footprint of the Upper Plaza building. And the Lower Plaza building is remaining. Will attach to the Lower Plaza building. So it's only the Upper Plaza building that we need to demolish.
Any other questions? Rachel, anything else that you need to tell us, or are you ready for us to move forward?
I have, unless you have any questions, I've given my report.
Just thank the committee for their consideration for this. Very big deal. It's great to know that as part of the Cheeseboro Farms era, and involved in the development of Jefferson City, and we're continuing that with the building of the bigger warehouse. So thanks again for your consideration.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the application as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Dawn, are you ready for a
Alan?
yes?
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dr. Boston?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Laura.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Laura. I was saying, we didn't ask everyone.
Whether my glasses on?
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, and the motion carries.
Motion carries.
All right.
We will send you a letter outlining that the Historic Preservation recommended approval. You'll still have to work through the building department for the demo permit. All that will be outlined in the letter.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And before we move on, let me recognize Aaron Mealy is here, City Council liaison too. Okay, application for landmark designation 612 East McCarty Street. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was just waiting.
The Historic Preservation Commission received a landmark award application for 612 East McCarty. The building is already included in the School Street Local Historic District. We did reach out to the applicants to make sure that they're aware of the status. But they still wanted to pursue landmark designation. For local landmark status, the HPC is tasked with providing a recommendation to City Council based on the designation criteria specified in Section 8-44C of the City Code. Staff found designation of 612 East McCarty could be eligible based on the following criteria. Its character, interest, or value as part of the development heritage or cultural characteristics of the community, county, state, and nation. Its location as a site of significant local, county, state, or national event. Its embodiment of distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style valuable for the study of a period, type, method of construction, or use of indigenous materials. Its embodiment of elements of design, detailing materials, or craftsmanship that render it architecturally significant. Enclosed in your packet is the landmark application of photos and relevant property research. The nominated building is located within the regulatory floodplain. Design standards to preserve cultural resources can pose the potential to negatively impact the property owner's ability to be in compliance with historic design standards, floodway regulations, and local ordinance. That stated, all compliance conditions have already been imposed on the property through its inclusion in the School Street Local Historic District. So the staff recommendation is approval of designation of 612 East McCarty as a local landmark. Up on your screen is photos of the property that were submitted. Also within your packet was research provided by the applicant. Before the development, it was known as Cottage Place Park. So I thought that was interesting, even pre-development of the landmark applicant itself. Also included in the packet was information regarding the former property owners, all tying into its significance within the city. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I was gonna say, I think I've always liked this house. It's always charming in the rounded porch. So I'm going to support the landmark application and designate 612 East McCarty as a local landmark.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
It's the owner here.
No.
No, they were invited,
Okay, just wanted to see if they wanted to make any comments.
I'll say I had it actually on the market the last couple of times and sold them sold to, Tony and Jenny Smith, where they redid it and then sold it for them again. And it is a great architectural,
It's cool. It's on my wall.
it is a wonderful property.
It's the only one in the
So
block that's in any kind
whenever
of condition.
Whenever it's open, whenever they get their work, I would highly suggest going to it. It's a really nice property to see. It's really good.
I presented at the Golden Hammer Award in 2016, once Tony and Jenny finished it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty,
It's very nice.
yeah.
And it's nice it has that the extra lot there is really nice with it and things, makes them have a nice space and everything, and it's really good. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, Don?
Alan?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yep.
Brad?
Yes.
Dr. Boston?
Yep.
Laura?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Don, or Rachel. Section 106 review, 1421 East Miller Street.
Yes. In front of you is the Historic Preservation Commission assessment for Section 106 reviews. This project is 1421 East Miller Street. Is a residential single-family home. They are applying for assistance to the emergency home repair program. The homeowner is concerned with potential water infiltration where the flat roof meets the rear of the structure. So the property owner is utilizing or is desiring to utilize community development block fund grant funds to replace the roof in that section. I'll pull up the photo of the property. Okay, so there's actually a flat roof section that I'm trying to pull up. Right. And that's where the water penetration is coming through. The emergency home repair program using CDBG funds through the city provides up to $5,000 to property owners that qualify income-wise to be able to utilize the resources to maintain their properties, especially when it comes up as an unintended expense. And I will note, if you look at the Section 106 review assessment form, we did make those updates that we discussed the last time we reviewed the Section 106.
Thank you.
No, well, I'm glad you pointed it out. That's what we need to do. So within this, we did find that section of East Miller could potentially be eligible. So staff is recommending that the property is designated, that last check box, that the property is designated a local landmark. I'm sorry, the third box. The property is designated a local landmark. No.
It's the fourth one. No adverse effect?
Yes.
Keep reading, Rach. We'll get there.
I confused myself. Property is designated a local landmark by the city of Jefferson and or is listed or eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. There will be no adverse effect by the current project and it is approved by this commission. That was really hard.
I move that. But I move that there will be no adverse effect on this property and that we approve the current project.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Don, are you doing a roll call or?
I don't think I have
You have to?
do I?
This one, yeah.
Okay. Alan?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dr. Boston? Laura?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. You're good. Okay, other business, HPF grant updates.
Yes, so we, for the Phase 2 West Main Survey Project, we did receive a grant amendment from the State Historic Preservation Office to give us the extra funding that Stantec would need to do the city directory research that the SHPO was requiring for that project. We also received a change order from Stantec. It was less than $5,000, it's $4,800. And that change order has to go through council on the consent agenda, so it'll be coming up at this coming Monday's council meeting. So once we get that change order executed, Stantec will be able to resume the project. They also received a grant. We also received a grant extension until July of this year to go ahead and get those projects done. The design guidelines, we did send those out to HBC. I wanted to see if anybody had any comments or feedback from the draft that we were provided by H3 Studio. We did receive comments back from the SHPO. Did you all receive that? I'm getting some faces that are...
I didn't get it.
I don't remember getting anything either.
Okay, we'll go ahead and make sure, make a note to...
The 100%, the last draft?
Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and make sure that we do that tomorrow, so that way you all have another opportunity to review. The SHPO did provide comments for the consultants, so we went ahead and sent those drafts, so we do have a little bit of time to review. But if you have any comments, please get those to me as soon as you can. Because we'd hope to get those adopted and be able to go ahead and implement those within the city and use them as a tool for us. We also received a brief extension until May of this year to be able to go ahead and get the draft where the SHPO will accept it as the product for HPF funds. I will mention, since the design guidelines relate to Capitol Avenue, that the redevelopment process for Capitol Avenue, the RFP process rather, is coming up on Thursday mornings. Public Works and Planning is on the agenda. I wanted to make sure that you all were aware that it was there. You could participate in the meeting virtually or come in person. I think it's somewhere in the mid to early part of the agenda. Those meetings tend to stretch, but I wanted to let you know that the conversation with Capitol Avenue, the properties, we were awarded the properties through the courts. We've got to wait. She's got an appeal process for the amount that she has to pay for the properties, and then they'll be recorded and they will officially become the city's. So that's kind of the status of Capitol Avenue and the Bishop properties. Barbara Bishop no longer owns any property within the city. So that's done for now. Yes?
Rachel, you mentioned the price that she has to pay. You mean the price the city is paying Ms. Busher?
So so the court awarded, the condemnation suit was awarded to the city, but then she has an appeal process not for if she gets to maintain the properties. It's more about the amount that's there on how much, and there's math involved with how much there was tax liens on the property. So that can be appealed. And yes, how much we pay her. I'm sorry, did I say how much she pays us? Okay, misspoke. So that process can be appealed, but not the actual property exchange. So on Public Works and Planning, they're going to discuss the RFP process for the remaining buildings. Any other questions on?
How many buildings is that?
For
This last bunch is almost 20.
this is phase 4. So I think she originally had
38.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly how much she started with, but first we went through different phases, utilizing the housing authority. So this is the phase 4 of the project.
It includes the ones up on Jefferson Street, not just on Capitol Avenue.
Okay.
Yes, so those I'm not sure, and I think that's part of the conversation at Public Works and Planning, because we laid out, or council did rather, laid out the plan for those properties, but not for there's Jefferson, and then there's Adams, and then there's the block on Capitol Avenue, and then there's a few spots around the city. But I think that should be addressed at Public Works and Planning on Thursday.
MSP update?
I just wanted
Oh,
to,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, Chair, thank you. I just wanted to add, just a quick statement to what Cindy said, and I appreciate her bringing up, that RFP will be discussed at Public Works. It's very important. You know, these are 21 properties that if without an RFP, you could maybe say the highest bidder gets the property, and the highest bidder could be a demo of the property every time. So it's really critical to think about, you know, what an RFP would require, and, you know, trying to preserve some of these structures and what it is, the work that you all do, you know, to save the historic nature of the city. So I think that'll be a really important thing. Just wanted to echo that.
And that agenda's printed and the packet's printed already online, right?
I'm not sure about the packet, but I know the agenda is out. Okay, MSP updates. Okay, so there's a lot of activity happening at MSP. So we have the community revitalization grant that's focused for MSP, and the premise of the grant was to connect the prison site to the surrounding neighborhood. And we have data that shows, you know, the closure of the prison was very much equivalent to like another community's plant closure or major development closure. It had, you know, over 200 jobs, and there were activities going on around it. So before the prison closed, there was the neighborhood, and then once the census came out in 2010, that area became a qualified census tract. So we have pretty good data that shows that there was a downslide for that neighborhood. So that's the reason why we applied for the community revitalization grant. So originally, if you'll remember, it was tied to the original redevelopment project. And we were awarded community revitalization in January of 23. Then we broke ties with our developer in March of 23. The state did allow us to shift the project a little bit because some of the things that we were doing, such as the demo cleanup and the site cleanup, were eligible expenses, and we could go ahead and keep going and build out sidewalks and greenway trails. We were then told by the state that we could not use state ARPA funds on state-owned property. So that makes it complicated when we were talking about demolishing Housing Unit 5 and Housing Unit 2, which are the large red brick structures at the prison site. Housing Unit 2 is actively leaning and has had movement since we last looked at it. So if it falls, it does threaten the Centennial cells and potentially Housing Unit 3, depending on if it fully falls or if a layer of brick sloughs off. So we are working with the state on that. We do have contracts for brush removal. So if you've been to the site within the past couple of weeks, you'll notice that it's really cleaned up. That includes the end off of Lafayette. There's kind of a lookout right there. So we did remove a lot of the scrub brush and smaller like locust type trees. Nothing greater than 12 inches in diameter, so we still have some of the old growth that's there, but the site should get cleaned up. We also executed a demolition contract for the Saddle Tree Factory. That should be happening within the next month or so. And then there's the conversation with the state about the One Health Lab and what their needs are to support it. So right now, the state does have the right to exercise reentry in July of 2025 if the city does not build at the site or is actively building. So we are currently working on that phase of the project. But right now it's mostly cleanup and then design work and lots of communication with the state. The governor did put $52 million in his budget to turn MSP into a state historic site. It did not go over very well at the House Budget Committee meeting. So it is in the budget, but it could be, still has to go through the budget process. So any community support would be welcomed for that project. We do have our lobbyists working it as well. And that's pretty much not a whole lot of solid information. We've got some successes in one area, and then we're still planning and organizing in other areas. Do you all have any other questions about MSP?
So how much money does the city have to build on that site, apart from, cleaning up the
Right, so
But my basic question is, without the state's money, there really can't be any redevelopment of significance.
well, it depends on, so we have a site control issue. So it's hard to get development or spend public dollars if there's this question of site control. So right now it's I think that's what made that and COVID and all the other, the previous development that fell apart. And sometimes those things just happen. Like sometimes you get down the road and you realize you can't push your financing package together. It happens and you shift. So we're in the middle of that shift. What that's going to look like, I'm not sure. For community revitalization, the funding that's dedicated there is right around the $6.5 million mark, and that includes the build out of Chestnut, it includes the community revitalization grant, it includes the county, Cole County also put in about $1.5 million to the project site, and then we also had the city's ARPA fund when they were allocating dollars from ARPA, they also included $1 million there. So that's for that project. Future funding could also be funneled there, but I think that the site control issue will come into play there. So it's hard to get the large development dollars without the city having true control.
Okay. Paul Broom grant
Yes.
dates.
So we are, I have not reached out to all the property owners, but I do want to have them come in probably at the next meeting or the May meeting to give you project updates. We still have the 206 to 210 East High Street. We have not received any sort of structural report from them to date. We did get notified that there were bricks falling on the back. So I'm not sure, we'll have to reach out to the property owners and see.
Is that the JCPenney building?
JCPenney building. So that one's threatened. We also, the Dunklin Street property did give us a reimbursement request. So that project has been partially, the feedback that we're getting from from the recipients is that they're having a lot of cost overruns. Certain materials are costing more than they anticipated in the original budget. And then 300 East High is still in their environmental process. So we're trying to get that one over the hump, and then we'll really start working with some of the other recipients on some of their projects.
So the JCPenney building, where are we at? Because we had talked about going back and dividing that money back out between them. So where are we at on being able to do that?
So we gave them, the property owners did reach out to us in January and said, we have structural engineering reports, but they were old. So we needed a new one. And we gave them a new deadline of March. So we're in March. So if they get through, we'll do March 31st, and I come in April 1st, and we still have nothing to work with. We'll go ahead and work on de-obligating those funds. And that's when we talked about dividing them amongst the existing projects, which there are a need amongst all of them, just because of the cost of construction. It's unpredictable.
Okay. It'd be nice to hear from all of them. I mean, it was a wonderful presentation before, I think, and it was nice how they came up about dividing the money amongst themselves and everything. HPC code revision.
I did get a draft from legal. We are sending it out to all of our internal staff. And I did ask the question of, is this, is this it? So hopefully, once we get that final review, we'll be able to send it out. I did receive an email from the chair of the stakeholders committee asking for a stakeholders update. So I will send that out to them and hopefully with a draft. So the plan is we get that draft and we send it out and we do a 30-day public comment period. And once we receive comments, we'll reconvene the stakeholders committee, see if we want to incorporate any comments or strategies or suggestions. And then it will go through this body, and if approved, it goes through planning and zoning, then public works and planning, and then to full council.
Historic Preservation Month.
We're here again. So there's a couple of things. Historic Preservation Month is a good opportunity to do educational outreach. We also have a looming bicentennial coming up for the city. And so earlier this week in a staff meeting, I was asked if the Historic Preservation Commission wanted to be involved in some of the activities for the city's bicentennial, which is next year, 2025. And I assumed that you all would, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to you tell me yourselves. But I also wanted to talk more about what you want to do for Historic Preservation Month coming up in May. Last year we did the Facebook social media posts. We also did the historic bike ride. And so we could do those things, or we could do something different.
As a prelude to Preservation Month, I do believe that the Education Committee for Historic City of Jefferson will be looking for volunteers for their April 28th cemetery tour. Mm-hmm. Riverview Cemetery, 1 to 4, April 28th.
I think it is.
So that might be a good opportunity for our team to connect with HCJ and do something that tells the story of Jefferson City through its historic cemetery.
Is there a time for that, Tiffany?
1 to 4, April 28th.
Is that a Saturday or Sunday?
It's a Sunday, I think.
Yeah.
And I have kid duty, so I have to go pick up somebody. So I apologize is there anything else that I need to vote on, or I apologize to the committee for bugging out?
Not for me, unless you want to give an idea for Preservation Month. You just did.
I just did.
And if you've looked at the HCJ Facebook page, she does every week a new posting that just has exploded. Of all the historic pieces around JC.
So I'm social media'd out, so from doing HCJ.
Big success.
I was going to suggest instead of a bike tour, I've noticed there's been an uptick in the number of people wanting to do walking tours. And it's a little bit more accessible than bike tours. And I could actually participate in a walking tour versus bike tour because my knee's not doing well.
If we concentrated downtown, I would be more than happy to help with walking tour of some of the historic resources in the Capitol complex and surrounding. So I'll throw that out, and I will see you next month.
And I can do the downtown buildings, a lot of those, depending on the date.
Have to be after school, let's out.
Okay. So walking tour, still Facebook, social media blasts.
We can revisit all of our landmarks on social media, you know.
That's a great idea.
Share those out. We've been doing them since the 90s, haven't we?
Oh yeah, 1994.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one we just approved.
sorry.
You get the brass,
That's fine. I just wanted to
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of miscommunication in the office, so I want to make sure we are on the same
Oh.
page about what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Our landmarks that we.
Landmark award highlights.
Yeah.
So like, just highlighted the property.
That way we already have the content. It's not like we're trying to find.
Pictures, we've got the.
Oh, so we have.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
Just
write-up on
updates.
all of them. I've got them all in a
Right.
file.
And anything would be just updating if anything's changed.
Yeah, and I can
Who owns them or something.
look and see if it's changed. Things have happened.
And what is our process on landmark awards now? Like, do we have a set deadline? Like this one came in.
So it used to be, and it used to be that they were collected in February, so that way they could award a landmark in May. And then we eliminated the deadline, just said
Whenever, okay.
we'll process them. But there's a lot of old applications like still out. I don't know if it's just like you Google it and that's what pops up, like an old. So we do get some of the old applications that have the February deadlines, which is, I think, why we got this one at the timing that we did.
Right.
But there is no deadline for intake. It's just that as the project is ready.
Well, when I served on Historic Preservation Commission before, we selected them. You know, we came up with nominations ourselves and wrote them on a whiteboard, and then we went up and voted. And we did 5 a year. And the top 5, we would select for landmark awards. And if the owner had to agree to accept it. But it's kind of cool. It's nominations now.
Whenever it's ready.
Yeah.
It's not on the agenda, but I also wanted to, we've almost worked through, we did get awarded the Phase 3 West Main Survey Historic Preservation Fund Grant Award, so it's that next chunk after this project. But then once that, we don't really have any future projects. I'm assuming you would like to keep going down West Main as that phase project and get those areas listed on the National Register. But is there anything else that you want to start to strategize toward in regards to applying for grant funds for different projects or implementing strategies within the historic preservation plan, or some of the suggestions that were put out in the historic context? I'm just trying, because it takes us 3 years to, if we apply for a grant right now today, in a year we find out we get it, and that next year is when you actually start that implementation. So I want to start feeding 2026 and 27 right now, so we can start actively working towards those goals.
Since we hopefully will soon have, a set of guidelines, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we have a new preservation code that targets the importance and makes it easier to designate a local historic district in our city. Are there any grants that could help bring in someone to work on that process with surveying certain areas so we can get some local districts in place? Because
Well, that and even.
we only have 3.
And even the education process of educating people what the ordinance is and what the design guidelines are for the normal homeowner. Yeah, because I know I'm working in the middle of it and half the time I don't know half of it. So just that kind of information, especially I've talked to several people on the East End who are wanting to do some stuff and wanting to help with stuff. They have no concept of what guidelines, are appropriate, what they can do, what they can't do, and so forth.
Right.
So mini seminars, and I know there's grants out there for those.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's something I just want to put that bug in your ear about that future planning. But that's something we can definitely do. The Historic Preservation Fund will allow that. Also, if you go to, they call it Steel Pig, it's the state tribal local planning grants through the National Park Service. So if you go to their webpage, you can see all the eligible grants and opportunities that are out there.
Could you send that out to us?
Yes.
But right now, and that's where Paul Broom came in. So it's a federal grant. We applied directly to the National Park Service, and we were able to get some of those funds into the city. There's also a ton of underrepresented community grants. Historic preservation has found that it's got a little bit of a disparate impact as far as who gets to participate in historic preservation. So they're trying to put a lot of funding towards underrepresented communities, civil rights. So there's a lot of funding that we could use towards maybe some of our African American areas. If you wanted to do some work on the community center or, I'm going to mess it up, the Mason, what? I'm messing it up. It's right by our central maintenance.
Masonic Lodge.
Masonic Lodge. So all of those would be eligible because they're listed on the National Register. So funding for that. I know there's lots of conversation with the Foot and the Lafayette and the Historic Legacy District. So there's also funding that we could use to focus on activities in that area. But really, there's a lot of different things that we could really go after. But I think it would be good to pick a couple of targets and work towards those goals.
I think given the interest in the Foot and the Historic Legacy District and the momentum that is coming out of that documentary that was just seen, that we should focus on that. That's my personal view. I also may know that Lincoln's hiring someone who might be willing to do that based on all three candidates and what they told me. I don't know who they're hiring. They just all said they were interested in doing something like that.
Okay. Is there a way we could even subgroup some of this and we can just do some brainstorming in your, to look at some of those opportunities? Because, I know some of them are out there because I've read about them, but I don't know enough to say, hey, yeah, this would be something, or, the other members of this group need to know a little bit more about what's there and what would be apropos.
Do you want to do a work session?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I'm talking about, some kind of work session so that we
Can we look at the links first
familiar of
and
it.
then see kind of?
Yeah, look at
where we go
links.
from there?
We can come to the work session prepared.
Yes.
Yes, we'll send you the links. I'll send you different mechanisms for funding opportunities, and also make sure that you have a link to the context in the historic preservation plan. I think everybody has a copy of those, correct? Like a physical
I believe so.
So I just want to highlight some of the implementation strategies and maybe update it and say, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. Kind of checking those implementation strategies as we go and making sure that we cheerlead ourselves a little bit. Because I think we've done a lot of work and we're at that point where we need to get more work.
Councilman Mealy, you want to update on the one grant that I had shared with you that you and Patsy worked on? Do you know when you'll hear about that regarding the community center?
Yeah, Laura shared, it was with the National Heritage Fund.
Yeah, through the
Through,
National Preservation,
yeah. And so I worked with Patsy Johnson, I almost said Galbraith. Johnson thank you,
hyphenated.
to apply for grant funds through that grant for the community center on Donovan Street. And so we submitted an application and sometime actually it was due February 1st, I believe. So we submitted on the end of January. And I'm not sure to answer your question when we will hear back. So I followed up with Patsy at the Foot documentary, and I haven't asked her since, but we can check on that. So.
And it seems to be an annual grant that if we don't receive it.
That's exactly right, yeah, it's an annual grant. So if you don't receive it, you can, of course, reapply, and if you do receive it, you can reapply.
Nice. Well, thank you for working on that with her.
Well, thank you for sending it our
I
direction.
just sent it your way.
So and Rachel will probably know more about this, but if this body determined that they wanted to do, you know, a grant application for the community center, it would just have to probably be something that would complement our existing application out there. But that application may be long processed and approved or denied prior to what this body may want to do. But currently, the community center is a 501c4, so that's something to keep in mind if your interest is specifically in the community center.
And they have a new Facebook page, so.
They do. That's a great plug. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying, Eastside Business is trying to get a tour of the building along with that for our June meeting. So I've got to call into Patsy and wait and hear back from her.
Yeah, it's a neat building.
One of the, if I might add a comment about the May activities for Historic Preservation Month, advertising any walking tour or biking tour or anything like that to our tourists in town might be a really nice thing to do. So, you know, making the local hotels aware and things like that. We have a lot of folks in town at that time of year.
And there is a hotel motel committee that meets with the CVB the same day as this meeting. So we can get that information to all the hotel folks.
Sounds like we're organizing a downtown walking tour.
Sounds like a good idea.
Not suggesting a not date.
Graduation's what, the 11th?
That's what I'm looking up. Yeah, the 11th. So while we will have a bunch of people here, some of us will be tied up.
I can't do it.
Chaotic anyway.
I'm having an event at the log cabin on Saturday the 4th.
Probably not Memorial Day weekend either. Because everyone's gonna be
I
gone.
think HCJ's annual luncheon is the 18th. I want to say it's the 18th. I'm not president anymore, guys. So
I haven't seen anything.
yeah, I think that's the date. Deborah, do you remember? She was talking about it at the last meeting, and I can't remember for positive. I think it's the 18th
May?
of May. It's always in May, but I think that's the date.
So it looks like you can't do any activities in May.
Yeah, sounds like everything's tied up. Sorry.
Well, it wouldn't have to be on a weekend, would it?
Yeah, no 4th, no 11th, no 18th. Yeah, we could do like
We
a.
could do something.
The bike rides was during the week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Why don't we just do like depending on the, let's do a Thursday evening. That way people, if they wanna stick around downtown, can go patronize the restaurants / bars. Make the downtown people happy. My generation was the Thirsty Thursday. You know, we ended that. My students still do it, so.
Which Thursday is Thursday Night Live in
In May, usually the third Thursday.
That's the 16th.
I said usually. That doesn't mean it is.
Posted the dates today, but I can't think of where.
I did that. I haven't looked at.
Okay, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Do we have any comments from the public? Okay, next regular meeting is April the 9th. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, Doris.
Thank you, Doris.